Hey guys, today we will talk about one of the most well-known people involved in the Chernobyl disaster. The one who we may call some kind of an architect of the post-disaster cleanup in the exclusion zone. I'm pretty sure that you already know who am I speaking about, but just to be sure, this episode is all about Valery Legasov. Maybe this time we'll start a bit around, from the end. I expect that you already knew that Legasov died shortly after the Chernobyl disaster happened. It was exactly 2 years and 1 day later, done by his own hands. He was 51 years old then, and we could argue what happened exactly. Was he forced to do so by the communist secret police or KGB? Maybe the things he saw and did were so heavy for his mind that he chose that way of living the world by himself. Or maybe the radiation doses he received were so high that he didn't want to see what they would do to his body. After all, he was an exceptional specialist when it came down to everything related to radiation. I'm sorry we have started this episode with such grim information, but I think it will give you a better understanding of how tragic his days were post-Chernobyl disaster. Nonetheless, we can say that thanks to him the disaster didn't get worse. So, as a matter of speaking, he's kind of a hero of the whole story. So for starters, let's stay focused on the man himself. When was he born? What did he do before Chernobyl? And how exactly did he get involved in that? Valery Legasov was born on September 1st, 1936, in Tula, Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic. So not long before the World War II started, which, as you may remember, wasn't the best time for anybody living in Europe. Despite the tragic events, Valery had a chance to get a good education, probably thanks to his parents who were civil workers. We don't know much about them. We don't know what they did exactly, except that they were civil workers. But the fact that Valery had received quite a nice education speaks for itself. They definitely could spare some money for their son's education. First, he attended a school in Kursk, then moved to a school in Moscow, where he studied from 1949 to 1954. Valery was a pretty good student, graduated with a medal and was even involved in political organization for communist youth, known widely as Komsomol. First in school, then in the organization's central committee, and then in the Moscow City Committee. So you may say that he wasn't just a regular student. First of all, many of his supervisors and teachers said Valery was very talented. Second of all, his work in the Komsomol definitely got him a better start in adult life. Sorry to say, but it was just like that almost in every Soviet and Soviet-related country in the world at that time. Many talented people didn't get any opportunities if they haven't been involved in politics in some way. One of the most important moments of his life was when he was 25 and graduated Mendeleev Moscow Institute of Chemistry and Technology. This is exactly the place where he learned a lot about nuclear energy, including nuclear fuel. He then began to chase his academic career, receiving his doctorate in chemistry in 1972. I like that HBO's Chernobyl depicted his facial scars and injuries pretty accurately, as he suffered some as a result of various experiments. We can fast forward to 1981, when he was awarded a full membership of Academy of Sciences of the USSR. In the meantime, Legasov also became a professor, and in 1983 he was a deputy director of scientific work at the Kurchatov Institute of Atomic Energy. As others said of him, work seemed to be the meaning of his life. This, and his political involvement, may explain why he was assigned in the government commission that was supposed to investigate the Chernobyl disaster. Despite he wasn't exactly a reactor specialist, he knew a lot about nuclear energy, nuclear fission and nuclear fuel. Probably that's why he became a key member of the commission. Shortly after the disaster happened, different countries realized something bad was going on in the USSR, so a special meeting of the International Atomic Energy Agency took place in Vienna in August 1986. You may have heard about the speech he gave there. The reality was that Legasov, despite the usual Soviet approach to such matters, showed a truthful presentation of what happened in Chernobyl. He shared all of the important information about, for example, what mistakes the operators did, about the actions taken at that time and just about few minutes and few hours and few days later after the disaster happened. So we may say the Western scientific community learned a lot about the RBMK reactor flaws and how the poor decisions preceded the accident. And of course, how these decisions impacted the whole situation. Throughout his work in Chernobyl, Valery received a huge, enormous amount of radiation. It was about 1.5 sieverts, which was statistically enough to shorten his life to maybe a few years. To give you a perspective, this was around 1,500,000 microsieverts. If he would receive that dose in a short period of time, he would be dead within hours, or days at best. Usually, the dose of 10,000 microsieverts is enough to kill a person within a few weeks. That may be the reason that Legasov has took his own life. Or maybe one of them at least. But he made sure the whole lesson, hardly learned through the disaster, wasn't forgotten or completely lost. He recorded several tapes, later shared between scientists, often in secret, as it could be perceived as a conspiracy by the KGB or other Soviet security agencies. The beginning of the first tape is perhaps one of the scariest and saddest words ever said I have ever heard. Listen to this. In all my life, it never occurred to me that I would have to start this part of my life. At least not at the age that I currently am, just into my 50s. I have to start the part where I create my memoir, and this part is tragic, confusing, and incomprehensible. However, an event occurred of such a scale, of such involvement of people with controversial interest, of errors and victories, failures and successes. There are so many different interpretations of how and why this happened that it is in a way my duty to tell what I know, how I see and understand it, and how had I witnessed the events that occurred. Last but not least, he didn't knew back then that his choices, his life choices, his career path would impact the history of all mankind, and that they will change the modern world forever, and probably save millions of lives, tragically except the one of his own. If you watched HBO's Chernobyl miniseries, you probably know a lot of trivia about Legasov, but let's just say the producers didn't get everything right. They pictured many things fairly well, some not so well, and some they cut out entirely. For example, I was happy to learn that Valery was married and had 2 children. But we will dedicate another full episode to HBO's TV show, where we will point out some of the most interesting details that they got wrong. I love the miniseries, but honestly I believe that this event really needs and really deserves to be described without any misunderstandings. But let's just stop here. That's enough for today, guys. Next time, we will share how accurately the HBO miniseries were. I think that you have learned something about one of the most important people related to Chernobyl event. If you would like to hear more like this, leave a comment, and see you soon, guys.